Hello, hello. Can you hear me? I was trying to get the chat box working and it wasn't, but I think it's good now. Um, Although the text is fading, so there's still something slightly wrong, but at least it's showing. I didn't actually mean to go live at that very second. I was running the stream privately, and then I think when I changed something in the YouTube studio, I went from the classic studio to the new studio, and I think it knocked it into public, but it's totally fine. But I was just testing things out actually. But very nice to see those of you popping in, Logan and Shannon. um, you love cats more. Well, I'll let you off. You've had a big day at the cinema today, by the sounds of it, Shannon. So you saw Star Wars and Cats, right? And Sarah's here. Very nice to see you. Um, yeah, that's a good point though. Was there a notification? Because, like I said, it must be right. All of you can't be popping in just purely because you were browsing YouTube and saw this. Um, I wonder if, I hope if I navigate here, this doesn't knock you out. I've never used the new. Oh no, it's okay. Um, yeah, I've not used this new studio um, for streaming before, and I didn't actually mean to use it now, technically. But so just messing around with things briefly, but nice to have you here. I did also want to go make a cup of tea. And I've not quite finished my dinner either. So this was not exactly how I planned it to go. Um, oh, you did get a notification though. That's great. So at least it's yeah, at least that worked, even if it was an accident. Just readjusting slightly. I feel slightly more zoomed in than last time. I wonder. Computer must just be positioned slightly different. Must have been strange. Must have been further over. Ah, doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. I liked it better last time though. Let me try and fix this silly text box. 1 second. Sorry, I'm like right up to the camera here. It's just because the camera's up on the top of the computer. Um, I'm impressed though, Shannon. Sorry to focus on you. And hello to Caitlin as well. Not seen you for a while. And Olivia and Teffy. With Love Pixie. Ah, very nice to see you. Very nice to see you dropping in. Yeah, so let me just try and fix this text box because the text disappears after a few seconds. Here we go. Always show messages. Yeah, it's just because I mentioned this on the last stream. There we go. Cool. It's a shame that you're all in purple. It looks a little bit boring. Can I not change that? It's a little bit on the ugly side. What would look better? Text color, it says. Yeah, because Twitch just takes liberties and makes you different colors anyway. This has just got you all the same. It's a little bit boring. And the font's a little bit ugly as well, I think. I'm sure I'd change that. I Theme. I wonder if white background would look better. Maybe. But yeah, I was saying, I had to reset my streaming software. So it took me, that was one of the reasons why I was very late streaming last time, because I spent about an hour messing around with it. But the chat box never worked. And that's not changed anything at all. Okay, it's not too ugly. I really don't want those purple names though. It just doesn't fit in with the theme. Just doesn't fit in. But it's fine. It's better to have a slightly ugly chat box than no chat box, I think. And Drakea's back again. Nice to see you. Becoming a regular. How do you impress? Many ways, Shannon. But the the one I was thinking of was that you were at the cinema and watching the stream at the same time. I thought that was quite impressive. Yeah, cheers, Sarah. But I can survive without the rest of my dinner for now, because I had a very late lunch. But I might just have to take a break. But I might go and put a cup of tea on at the very least. So if anyone tunes in and there's just an empty screen, maybe you can just keep reminding just for a few minutes that I will be back. I am coming back again. Yeah, maybe it would work for Halloween. For Christmas, not so much. Yeah, it's really not a big deal. Sorry for wobbling the screen. But yeah, strange. It says background color white. Clearly isn't. There's probably something I'm doing wrong. But never mind. The other option is you guys probably just don't even care, but my other option is to do it through YouTube. Okay, let's hope that's not going to kick you out, is it? Live streaming. People don't even to leave data may not saved. Leave page. I'm worried. It's going to kick you out. I think you're still here. But yeah, I could pop the text box out here, which I've done before. But yeah, you don't even turn up here. That's strange. Okay, maybe I'll leave that and just do it through here. It's okay. Right, I'll stop messing. Yeah, I think it does have that hex code, but it also shows a little sample of the color as well, so you can actually precisely select the color. And I changed it to white, but it's oh, maybe do I need to refresh it or something? I don't think so. Just one sec. Sorry for wobbling around every time I press the thing. It's just only problem, like, this laptop's fantastic, very, very good, but it only has 2 USB ports, and one of them's for the microphone and one of them's for the webcam, so I can't have my wireless mouse plugged in at the same time. So this is why when I'm clicking on the laptop, you're wobbling around, because the webcam is mounted to the laptop. So if I had a proper webcam stand, then that would get around the wobbles at the very least, even though I do prefer having the mouse. But this is not going to make a difference, right? Okay. Maybe it did. Let me just send a message just to see if this is. I can't have broken it, can I? No. Oh, we have colour and a weird little symbol, which I think is me. Ooh, cool. Get typing. I've wiped all your messages off, but I think it has fixed the colour thing slightly. Unless everybody's... Oh no, everybody's just in green now. Okay, so it must just pick a random colour for some reason. And then the white text that it's referring to is just the text box. Like the actual text that we're writing, not the names. White is all the Fs. Exactly, thanks, Drakir. Yeah, I just saw that. So I do have the right thing selected, but it must be something to do... There must be a different setting for the chatters, like the chat name. But it doesn't have any options. It just says hide common chat box, hide commands, and then the only text color font size is selected. But green is better than purple. Yeah, crown means owner. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cheers, Chuck. I can't even see that it's a crown. It's so small on my screen. All right. Okay, but I prefer green. Green feels a little bit more in theme. I could just keep refreshing it until I get orange or something, but no, green is absolutely fine. It's inoffensive. The purple is a bit garish. All right. So I'm gonna go make a cup of tea. As I started this earlier than I meant to, although later than I meant to technically also, but it was an accidental start. Cheers, Olivia. Cheers, Olivia. Okay, so back soon. We're gonna yeah, don't worry, Drakir, don't worry. This will work just fine. It's absolutely fine. Exactly, Olivia. When I said more in theme, that's exactly what I meant. It's not too far off the little origami fox. Exactly. That's why I felt like it was working a little bit better, and it's closer to my t-shirt as well. So I'll be back in 5 minutes. I probably could leave a little message on the stream. Shall I do that? Shall I try and be useful and leave a message? Let's do it. Add a new source. Bum ba dum ba dum. And if anybody does ask, you can let them know what's going on. Oh, that was small. That was way smaller than I expected. And very pixelated. Why is it doing that? It must be because I'm stretching it. Oh, that's fun. That's very big. But I'll try and get straight on with the reading when I get back. So you won't have long to wait. Just have a couple of sips of my tea, and that will do. that's what I'm talking about. Very, very pretty. Not. Oh gosh. mm. How are we all doing though today? And did you enjoy the first stave, the first chapter, just a couple of days ago? I'm guessing you did. If you're back, it was a real pleasure to read, to be honest. But I like this story very, very much, even though I didn't finish my reading of it not last year, the year before, like 2 years ago when I first started on YouTube and everything. But I am a big fan of the story. I think it's fantastic. So do share any thoughts on chapter 1. You can always chat among yourselves. I'm sure you can keep yourselves in line and out of trouble without me around. And thanks so much to everyone joining so far. So I'm going to say 5 minutes. If it's 10, forgive me, but I'm aiming for 5 minutes. Yeah, you can't go wrong with a Christmas Carol at this time of year, right, Logan? Okay, back soon. Hello, hello. You should be able to hear me again now. These are my Christmas llamas. Just need some water. How are we doing, Fox fans? Have you kept yourself entertained? I just checked in on the stream whilst I was just quickly finishing my dinner as well. I thought, oh, I should. Seen a few other people popping in. How on earth do you pronounce that then? Imagdinim 9788. It could be Emma Goodenim. It could be a Magdanim. A Magdanim. I wonder what could be a Magdanim. Yeah. Well, welcome and Merry Christmas. This is one piece of my, and I'm going to say it, my fiance's Moomin mug collection. One of the Christmas specials. I'm not sure which year this is from. She would know at a second's glance. 2016. 2016. Yeah, when I just checked the stream at a distance, I saw Mama Fox joining also. Hello, hello. Back in the motherland. And some nice chat about cinemas and communism. Or was it popcorn? Somehow those subjects managed to overlap, which I thought was quite amusing. Ada is here. Mango is here, just dropping in now as well. Very nice. I hope I've not missed anybody. But I also saw that this text box, which I know you're all very, very concerned about, excuse me, was a little bit out of whack. And I just don't like stuff like that. You know, it wasn't very centralized. So, there you go. now it overlaps slightly here. No, I don't want to squish. Thank you, Ashling, aka Wicked Witch. That's very kind of you. Thanks very much. That should look okay. It's a little bit roomy on the right hand side, but nothing to worry about at all. Alright, that's not too bad. And hello to Lindsay as well. Welcome, welcome. How are you doing? Like I said, I was just finishing off a little bit of dinner as well as making myself a cup of tea. And now my throat is a little bit gunky. So, excuse me, I will try and stop clearing my throat into this very sensitive microphone. But yeah, just give me a few seconds to let this process, or a few minutes to let this process, and I'll just drink a little bit of my tea. Should just relax my throat a little bit. Oh, some Christmas shopping chat as well. How are we doing with our Christmas shopping so far? If you celebrate Christmas, of course, and if you are engaging in the madness and joy of shopping for Christmas. I'm not going too crazy this year. I mean, I have just invested in a rather beautiful ring, so it's a good excuse to tone it down slightly on the Christmas presents. Although I actually really love buying gifts and such. But yeah, I'll be picking up a few extra things. I've already got to major things, and my lady and I, who is, I hope she won't mind me saying, is fast asleep on the sofa here just beside me. We got a few things for Mama and Papa Fox when we were over in England for a few days, just a week ago or so. Oh, thanks, Logan. That is exactly the kind of thing that I would forget unless I started the reading, and then I'd be like, why the flip is that there? Thanks very much. I felt like changing it to back. Although it's probably slightly unnecessary, as you can see my face. But cheers, Logan. Oh, cool, Aisling. Yeah, you just catch up with that first stream whenever you can, but it's lovely that you're still popping into this one. Fantastic. Mind games backwards, lol. Help me out. It's been known to turn. I get so easily confused sometimes. Oh, good job, and I really hope everything's gone okay for you, Aisling. Oh, hi, Sean. Lucky man. Teffy's fiance. It's the fiance club. Congratulations to you both as well. Is it nuts? I don't know. I think it actually feels less nuts here than it does back home in England. I think, no offense to you Americans out there, as in those of you from the US, but Christmas is more traditional in a European sense here in Sweden, and the UK has become more commercialized in many ways and has certainly taken influence from America. I mean, good and bad. There's a lot of fun there, a bit of extra glamour, I suppose, in a way, but Sweden, it's a little simpler, a little bit more modest. Like, it's definitely becoming more commercialized too, or I guess a bit globalized or whatever. But it's calmer. It feels less pressured in some ways. A lot of people seem very content just with spending a day or two with family or friends or, whoever is close to them, eating some nice food, swapping a present or two each, having a nice tree, if you've got all these, if you're lucky enough to have all these kind of Christmas commodities. So yeah, there's like some nice Christmas markets. Glögg, which is Swedish mulled wine, basically. The recipe is slightly different, but very much the same idea as mulled wine. Gingerbread that they call pepparkaka. Yeah, there's concerts here and there. It's quite relaxed. I think you can get sucked into all the commercial side of things too, and I'm sure kids and all the rest of it, all those with kids get much more sucked into it, and there might be more pressure there and everything. But yeah, I don't know. It's quite relaxed here. I think there's a very nice atmosphere in Sweden, and so far in Stockholm there's been almost no snow, which is extremely unusual. But that's very common back home these days, for there to be no snow throughout Christmas whatsoever. Here is very unusual. But I must say that this year, as an exception, it wasn't so super last year, if I remember rightly. I think there was some. But this year, as an exception, normally there's quite a lot of snow, even in a big city like Stockholm. especially out in the countryside and further north. But there's a lot of snow, and for me, that always just made it feel extremely Christmassy. It was just set such a lovely atmosphere. And, there's only about 6 hours of daylight a day in Stockholm if you're lucky. So the sun is technically supposed to be up for 6 hours, but if it's a bit of a grey day, it just makes no appearance whatsoever. And that goes on for a few months, like 6 to 7 hours either side of Christmas. And, that can get heavy. But if you've got sunshine and snow, the snow obviously reflects the sunshine, and you just have this white carpet and white trees, bright sky. And even if it's minus 10, 20 degrees or more, centigrade I'm talking here, then it just feels very Christmassy. I guess this is a northern hemisphere Christmas or whatever, but especially north of the northern hemisphere. But yeah, it feels very in theme for me, at least. It's like the white Christmas that you're told is Christmas when you're growing up in England, even though these days it almost never happens. But most years that I've had in Sweden, lots of snow, and like I said, it helps to get you through those very short, dark winter days as well, when it's you've just got that very beautiful atmosphere, and the light reflecting off the snow and everything, and brightening the sky. And ginger snaps, lovely, very nice. Don't worry, Aisling. I hope you get better as soon as possible. Don't you worry. Just looking at Jakir's comment from earlier, my plan with these streams, like I said, when I was streaming Wednesday night, Thursday morning, I'd hoped to start these. I'd hoped to start these streams a couple of weeks earlier, and I knew that I wanted at least 5, with there being these 5 lengthy chapters of A Christmas Carol, and I was also hoping to squeeze in some other readings as well. A little bit of Alice and a little bit of To Marry a Prince. So we'll just see how that goes. But as it is now, my plan is Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, and then I'll just have to see if it's because I'm away for a couple of days as well. So if I don't manage to squeeze one in actually on Christmas, or those kind of days, then I will just it's falling down again. My mistletoe's falling down. Did anybody notice that in the last stream? Nobody said anything, but it fell down literally just as Scrooge was, I think, heading home, and the supernatural stuff is just starting to creep in. The mistletoe fell down behind me, and I kept reading, but looked over my shoulder and then just continued. But nobody mentioned anything. It's fallen down again. It's just it won't stick. It will not stick. It's like you've got an hour to make the best of that mistletoe. Once the hour's passed, it's gone. But it was noisy, that. But yeah, if I can squeeze it in, if I can squeeze those other 2 streams in, I will. If not, they'll just be straight after Christmas, whether it's on the 26th, Boxing Day or something. But interestingly, and any other Europeans that are here might know, yeah, mistletoe fell asleep, exactly, might know, Christmas is actually celebrated on the 24th of December in Sweden, and it is in some other countries in Europe too. I think there's even a couple of countries that celebrate kind of Old Christmas Day. I don't know if it's Poland or something like that. That's not New Year's, is it? I think that's Christmas. But anyway, it's Christmas Eve. So julafton, as they say in Swedish, the day before Christmas. Um, that is the main Christmas celebration. So you have your Christmas dinner on the 24th. You open your presents on the 24th. A lot of people do it in the evening instead, so it's more kind of like celebrating the day turning into Christmas Day. I guess if you looked at it the other way around, they would say like, oh, but you're sleeping through the start of Christmas, so they, and then you're opening your presents and Christmas has already come. But I don't know. I mean, that feels kind of normal to me, like as if the presents have all been left and you wake up and there they are. But but maybe it's because Santa, Father Christmas, or jultomte, as they say in Swedish, like the Christmas gnome, it almost sounds like. He lives in Lapland. Some say northern Finland, some say North Pole. But either way, Sweden would be first on his rounds, I suppose. So maybe he flies in, whether he's leaving Lapland, North Pole, we'll let you discuss that. Flies out, drops into Scandinavia, sorts that out on the 24th, and then like heads off west, maybe, UK, off over to America and sorts it all out. Has a very, very, very busy night going into the 25th. So maybe that's how it works. I think that's logical. It's probably slightly too much to ask that one guy and a bunch of reindeers, however magical, could get it sorted all in one night. So, if he sets off a bit early, sorts out Sweden and a few other countries, and then, jobs are good. But where are you from, Mango? I'm seeing that you're saying that you or your husband's family do it on Christmas Eve as well. Have you got, or has he got connections elsewhere, or is that a US thing sometimes too? I'm just skimming through the older chat before I get started. Interesting though, because Shannon was like, yeah, commercial and proud, and then Mango's like saying like, oh no, it is crazy, I wish it was more relaxed here. So it's a very subjective thing. Yeah, no system is perfect, Jackie. Very true, very true. I want to get back to the present day. Gingerbread. Always love a bit of gingerbread. Mistletoe falling down. Oh, that's nice, Shannon. One gift on Christmas Eve and then the rest on Christmas Day. I like that. Oh, hey, Georgie. I wasn't sure if you and Brad were going to pop in today because you said, it can be very busy around the Christmas time. But very nice to see you. Yeah, if you have to head off, no worries. You can always catch up with the recorded version. But thank you for saying hi. And if you can stick around, obviously, you're very welcome. Just stick it in the background or something. Yeah, thanks very much. Really glad you enjoyed that last one. It was very nice to see you after such a long time. Ah, you are from the US, Mango. Yeah, that makes sense. But interesting. Family's Armenian. In fact, I think the gentleman that I mentioned on the last stream, Hanno, the extremely talented jeweler that created the ring that my sleeping fiance is wearing, I think his family is from Armenia too. I think so. Beef and Yorkshire pudding. Sounds fantastic. I'm sure Sean Bean would be most happy with that. Sounds absolutely juffing brilliant, that does. I'm feeling like Mama Fox has gone to sleep. She's not said anything for a while. Because it's late over there. Not as late as here. It's 1:30 here. But still 12:30 back home. I think she's snoozing. Oh, that's crazy, George. So you've got Romanian connections and Armenian connections from all over the place. I find it so interesting, honestly. Like people's origins. Are there many of you out there? Oh, you are there, Mama Fox. Are there many of you out there that have actually looked into your family trees? Made any interesting discoveries? Because I mean, everybody's from somewhere going back. I think there's very few people that are just countless generations back in the same country. Bam, 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 bam. You know, because obviously many people from the US will be from all over the place, often in Europe, of course. And many Europeans have their ancestors have travelled all over the place too. And if you go back far enough, you know, you're going to get into all sorts of different kingdoms and tribes and all the rest of it. So, you know, that with Britain, I mean, it's such a melting pot, really is. Whether you're talking about the Romans or the Vikings or all the different tribes and such, and French and Germanic and Dutch and Spanish and yeah, endless really, and then Polish coming further forward, and yeah, there's so many more I could mention. Gosh, that's so precise, Mango. 91% British. That is incredibly accurate. Brad, Irish, Scottish, Welsh, Georgie, half Romanian, half European, with an Armenian, Austrian, Italian, Polish blend. Sounds like some kind of fine wine. Like the UN. Fantastic. Irish and a teeny bit Scandinavian. I'm sure that I'm a teeny bit Scandinavian somewhere going back. I'm sure there's a lot of Scandinavian heritage in the UK as well, especially if you're from the north. Ah, cool. Yeah, I've been talking about that recently, actually, Ashling, the whole DNA analysis thing. I wonder how accurate that is. It's interesting. I'm very, very curious, actually, to try it one day. Very curious. Trinidadian, Guyanese, and Canadian. That's a very cool mix as well, Toffee. It's so fascinating, honestly. People are from every corner of the planet, really are. That's fantastic. Irish, Scottish, Welsh, German, and Native American. I think you've mentioned that before, Shannon. Amazing. Scottish, French, and a bit Jewish. Awesome. I'm not familiar with those spots, Drakia. You have to give me some. You have to give me some more info. Oh, don't forget the Dutch, Shannon. Yeah, yeah. There's obviously so much of that as well. I was talking to a guy in a Greek restaurant, a lovely guy, hosting in a Greek restaurant in a small town just to the west of Stockholm. I shouldn't say small town. By Swedish standards, it's very much a city, but to me, it feels like a small town. And he had some very interesting roots as well, and his family had come over to Sweden after being displaced by war and such as well. So you know, obviously that's a too common a situation. Yeah. Olivia, no idea. Okay, well, I can't believe I've already been online an hour. Like I said, I didn't mean to actually kickstart the stream when I did, hence why I've just been having a little bite to eat and some tea. But I can get started with the reading, I think. Is anybody else not listened to the first one, but you're just joining into the second part because you don't want to miss it, or you just feel like a little bit of live reading? I know Aisling said that she's yet to catch up, but maybe you know the story already, so it doesn't matter too much. Oh, are you heading off, Georgie? I saw Brad popping in and saying hello as well. It's really, really nice. Foxy, 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 Foxy Book Club. Yeah, I might have to try it, Aisling. I might have to try it. Like I said, we were talking about it just the other day. But yeah, I can get started. The stream looks fine. Was I sat this far forward? I'm sure. Has this got... maybe I have moved things a little bit. No, I don't know. Maybe I have. It's okay. I can lean forward slightly. Or shall I move things? No. Maybe. Maybe a little bit. Sorry, I'm sliding you. Sliding you. Hopefully it doesn't make too much noise. It's a little bit more comfy. It's okay. It's okay. I think I had it. I thought... I don't think I moved this. I think this has got moved. I'm not pointing any fingers, but I tried to leave it set up exactly how I had it last time because it just felt quite comfy, but it's okay. This is fine. Thank you, Mama folks. Yeah, you were thinking it was that it was a bit Sean Bean influenced. I mean, the thing was, like, I knew, especially for a live reading, I was never ever going to try and read all these parts in varying London accents and Cockney accents and stuff like that. Like, for a recorded thing, I don't, I like trying different things at times, and especially if it's just a small part or whatever. But with this entire story being set in London, there was just no way I was going to try and run that the entire time. So Scrooge, yeah, he became a bit of a northern equivalent, but it's got to come naturally or it just won't work. Oh, nice, Ashley. Nice. It's a bonus. Oh, Ruth's falling asleep now. Ruth, come on. Wake up. It's not that late. Maybe I should let her rest. Come on, get your act together. And Bill's just staring up into the sky. Don't think he's too into Charles Dickens, to be honest. He's more of a Harry Potter fan. He likes Lord of the Rings as well, I must admit, but yeah, they can just stare off. Sean Bean? No, he's alive and kicking. He's doing good. He's doing good, as Sean. No worries. Right, let's get started. Mama Fox is hearing none of that. Hello, Sarah. You still here as well? Alright then. I did want to pre-read this before I started, and I haven't, which is very poor of me. Oh, let's change this. Don't change this. Don't do this to me. Don't do it to me. Oh, no, then that's it. That's the ticket. But I have read this before. I can just try and remember as much as I can. I'm very tempted to have a cheeky pre-read whilst I've got you, but I've already kept you waiting for so long. Oh, well, I mean, Sean Bean, he always dies in all the films and TV that he's in, of course, but, you know, that's a different matter entirely. Even if he was a French king, yeah. Still proud. So yeah, I'll just go into this even without pre-reading it. Like I said, I didn't mean to hit the live when I did, so I was going to give myself an extra 20 minutes and just have a skim through this whilst I was eating a bit of food and having my cup of tea. But this is it. So I'll just do my best. No, you've waited long enough. You've waited long enough. But I'll just take my time, and if I don't rush it, I should be able to still... I should be able to still do a half-decent job. Even without the pre-reading. Okay, so we are dipping back into Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol as part of my 5 streams of Christmas live reading. And we are continuing the story with Stave 2, the first of the 3 spirits. When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark that looking out of bed, he could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber. He was endeavouring to pierce the darkness with his ferret eyes, when the chimes of a neighbouring church struck the 4 quarters. So he listened for the hour. To his great astonishment, the heavy bell went on from 6 to 7, and from 7 to 8, and regularly up to 12. Then stopped. 12. It was past 2 when he went to bed. The clock was wrong. An icicle must have got into the works. 12. He touched the spring of his repeater to correct this most preposterous clock. Its rapid little pulse beat 12, and stopped. "Why, it isn't possible," said Scrooge, "that I can have slept through a whole day and far into another night. It isn't possible that anything has happened to the sun, and this is 12 at noon." The idea being an alarming one, he scrambled out of bed and groped his way to the window. He was obliged to rub the frost off with the sleeve of his dressing gown before he could see anything, and could see very little then. All he could make out was that it was still very foggy and extremely cold, that there was no noise of people running to and fro and making a great stir, as there unquestionably would have been if night had beaten off bright day and taken possession of the world. This was a great relief, because 3 days after sight of this first of exchange pay to Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge or his order, and so forth, would have become a mere United States security, if there were no days to count by. Scrooge went to bed again, and thought and thought, and thought it over and over and over, and could make nothing of it. The more he thought, the more perplexed he was, and the more he endeavoured not to think, the more he thought. Marley's ghost bothered him exceedingly. Every time he resolved within himself, after mature inquiry, that it was all a dream, his mind flew back again like a strong spring released to its first position, and presented the same problem to be worked all through. Was it a dream or not? Scrooge lay in this state until the chime had gone 3/4 more, when he remembered, on a sudden, that the ghost had warned him of a visitation when the bell tolled 1. He resolved to lie awake until the hour was past, and considering that he could no more go to sleep than go to heaven, this was perhaps the wisest resolution in his power. The quarter was so long that he was more than once convinced he must have sunk into a doze unconsciously and missed the clock. At length it broke upon his listening ear. Ding dong. 1/4 past, said Scrooge, counting. Ding dong. 1/2 past, said Scrooge. Ding dong. 1/4 to it, said Scrooge. Ding dong. The hour itself, said Scrooge triumphantly, and nothing else. He spoke before the hour bell sounded, which it now did with a deep, dull, hollow, melancholy 1. Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, I tell you, by a hand. Not the curtains at his feet, nor the curtains at his back, but those to which his face was addressed. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, and Scrooge, starting up into a half-recumbent attitude, found himself face to face with the unearthly visitor who drew them, as close to it as I am now to you, and I am standing in the spirit at your elbow. It was a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man, viewed through some supernatural medium, which gave him the appearance of having receded from the view, and being diminished to a child's proportions. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white as if with age, and yet the face had not a wrinkle on it, and the tenderest bloom was on the skin. The arms were very long and muscular, the hands the same, as if its hold were of uncommon strength. Its legs and feet, most delicately formed, were, like those upper members, bare. It wore a tunic of the purest white, and round its waist was bound a lustrous belt, the sheen of which was beautiful. It held a branch of freshly green holly in its hand, trimmed with summer flowers. But the strangest thing about it was, that from the crown of its head there sprung a bright, clear jet of light, by which all this was visible, and which, doubtless, the occasion of its using, in its duller moment, a great extinguisher for a cap, which it now held under its arm. Even this, though, when Scrooge looked at it with increasing steadiness, was not its strangest quality. For, as its belt sparkled and glittered now in one part and now in another, and what was light one instant and at another time was dark, so the figure itself fluctuated in its distinctness, being now a thing with one arm, now with one leg, now with 20 legs, now a pair of legs without a head, now a head without a body, of which dissolving parts no outline would be visible in the dense gloom wherein they melted away. And in the very wonder of this, it would be itself again, distinct and clear as ever. "Are you the spirit, sir, whose coming was foretold to me?" asked Scrooge. "I am." The voice was soft and gentle, singularly low, as if instead of being so close beside him, it were at a distance. "Who and what are you?" Scrooge demanded. "I am the ghost of Christmas past." "Long past?" inquired Scrooge, observant of its dwarfish stature. "No, your past." Perhaps Scrooge could not have told anybody why, if anybody could have asked him, but he had a special desire to see the spirit in his cap, and begged him to be covered. "What?" exclaimed the ghost. "Would you so soon put out with worldly hands the light I give? Is it not enough that you are one of those whose passions made this cap, and force me through whole trains of years to wear it low upon my brow?" Scrooge reverently disclaimed all intention to offend, or any knowledge of having wilfully bonneted the spirit at any period of his life. He then made bold to inquire what business brought him there. "Your welfare," said the ghost. Scrooge expressed himself much obliged, but could not help thinking that a night of unbroken rest would have been more conducive to that end. The spirit must have heard him thinking, for it said immediately, "Your reclamation, then. Take heed." It put out its strong hand as it spoke, and clasped him gently by the arm. "Rise, and walk with me." It would have been in vain for Scrooge to plead that the weather and the hour were not adapted to pedestrian purposes, that bed was warm, and the thermometer a long way below freezing, that he was clad but lightly in his slippers, dressing gown and nightcap, and that he had a cold upon him at that time. The grasp, though gentle as a woman's hand, was not to be resisted. He rose, but finding that the spirit made towards the window, clasped his robe in supplication. "I am a mortal," Scrooge remonstrated, "and liable to fall." "Bear but a touch of my hand there," said the spirit, laying it upon his heart, "and you shall be upheld in more than this." As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall, and stood upon an open country road with fields on either hand. The city had entirely vanished. Not a vestige of it was to be seen. The darkness and the mist had vanished with it, for it was a clear, cold, winter day, with snow upon the ground. "Good heavens!" said Scrooge, clasping his hands together as he looked about him. "I was bred in this place. I was a boy here." The spirit gazed upon him mildly. Its gentle touch, though it had been light and instantaneous, appeared still present to the old man's sense of feeling. He was conscious of 1,000 odours floating in the air, each one connected with 1,000 thoughts and hopes and joys and cares, long, long forgotten. "Your lip is trembling," said the ghost. "And what is that upon your cheek?" Scrooge muttered, with an unusual catching in his voice, that it was a pimple, and begged the ghost to lead him where he would. "You recollect the way?" inquired the spirit. "Remember it?" cried Scrooge with fervour. "I could walk it blindfold." "Strange to have forgotten it for so many years," observed the ghost. "Let us go on." They walked along the road, Scrooge recognizing every gate and post and tree, until a little market town appeared in the distance, with its bridge, its church, and winding river. Some shaggy ponies now were seen trotting towards them with boys upon their backs, who called to other boys in country gigs and carts driven by farmers. All these boys were in great spirits and shouted to each other, until the broad fields were so full of merry music that the crisp air laughed to hear it. "These are but shadows of the things that have been," said the ghost. "They have no consciousness of us." The jocund travellers came on, and as they came, Scrooge knew and named them every one. Why, he was rejoiced beyond all bounds to see them. Why did his cold eye glisten and his heart leap up as they went past? Why was he filled with gladness when he heard them give each other Merry Christmas as they parted at crossroads and byways for their several homes? What was Merry Christmas to Scrooge? Out upon Merry Christmas! What good had it ever done to him? "The school is not quite deserted," said the ghost. "A solitary child, neglected by his friends, is left there still." Scrooge said he knew it, and he sobbed. They left the high road by a well-remembered lane, and soon approached a mansion of dull red brick with a little weathercock, surmounted cupola on the roof, and a bell hanging in it. It was a large house, but one of broken fortunes, for the spacious offices were little used. Their walls were damp and mossy, their windows broken, and their gates decayed. Fowls clucked and strutted in the stables, and the coach-houses and sheds were overrun with grass. Nor was it more retentive of its ancient state within, for entering the dreary hall and glancing through the open doors of many rooms, they found them poorly furnished, cold, and vast. There was an earthy savour in the air, a chilly bareness in the place, which associated itself somehow with too much getting up by candlelight, and not too much to eat. They went, the ghost and Scrooge, across the hall, to a door at the back of the house. It opened before them, and disclosed a long, bare, melancholy room, made barer still by lines of plain deal, forms, and desks. At one of these, a lonely boy was reading near a feeble fire, and Scrooge sat down upon a form, and wept to see his poor forgotten self as he used to be. Not a latent echo in the house, not a squeak and scuffle from the mice behind the panelling, not a drip from the half-thawed water-spout in the dull yard behind, not a sigh among the leafless boughs of one despondent poplar, not the idle swinging of an empty storehouse door. No, not a clicking in the fire, but fell upon the heart of Scrooge with a softening influence, and gave a freer passage to his tears. The spirit touched him on the arm, and pointed to his younger self, intent upon his reading. Suddenly a man in foreign garments, wonderfully real and distinct to look at, stood outside the window with an axe stuck in his belt, and leading by the bridle an ass laden with wood.
"Why, it's Ali Baba!" Scrooge exclaimed in ecstasy. "It's dear old honest Ali Baba! Yes, yes, I know. One Christmas time, when yonder solitary child was left here all alone, he did come, for the first time, just like that. Poor boy. And Valentine," said Scrooge, "and his wild brother Orson, there they go. And what's his name, who was put down in his drawers asleep at the gate of Damascus? Don't you see him? And the Sultan's groom turned upside down by the genii. There he is upon his head. Serve him right, I'm glad of it. What business had he to be married to the princess?"
To hear Scrooge expending all the earnestness of his nature on such subjects, in a most extraordinary voice between laughing and crying, and to see his heightened and excited face, would have been a surprise to his business friends in the city indeed.
"There's the parrot," said Scrooge. "Green body and yellow tail, with a thing like a lettuce growing out of the top of his head. There he is. Poor Robin Crusoe, he called him, when he came home again after sailing round the island. Poor Robin Crusoe, where have you been, Robin Crusoe? The man thought he was dreaming, but he wasn't. It was the parrot, you know. Oh, there goes Friday, running for his life to the little creek. Hallo, hoop, hallo."
Then, with a rapidity of transition very foreign to his usual character, he said, in pity for his former self,
"Poor boy,"
and cried again.
"I wish,"
muttered Scrooge, putting his hand in his pocket and looking about him after drying his eyes with his cuff,
"but it's too late now."
"What is the matter?" asked the spirit.
"Nothing," said Scrooge. "Nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should like to have given him something, that's all."
The ghost smiled thoughtfully and waved its hand, saying as it did so, "Let us see another Christmas." Fox fans, sorry to interrupt. My laptop is running out of power. The screen lost some brightness a little while ago, and I don't want it to run out of power because it will cut off the stream. So I'm just going to get my charger. It will take 1 minute. And before we see another Christmas, I will plug it in and restart. 1 moment. I'm back. I'm just checking the stream. I bumped the camera. Hope you're all doing well. See, there's still a nice little bunch of you here. Hope you're enjoying the chapter. And hello to Minor Tom. Nice to see you. And I will return to the story. Sorry for the little interruption. And funny to see that Minor Tom's name is actually jumping into the text. Let me correct that. It's better. Okay. You're getting lost, Drek here. I think it's beautifully written, personally. I think Charles Dickens has a lovely, lovely, elaborate style. I mean, remember this book is well over 100 years old, so it's going to sound very different to a lot of modern literature. But yeah, I think his writing is really wonderful. Okay, so back to the story. Just had a little interval as Scrooge is seemingly being sent to some other time and place. Scrooge's former self grew larger at the words, and the room became a little darker and more dirty. The panels shrunk, the windows cracked, fragments of plaster fell out of the ceiling, and the naked laths were shown instead. But how all this was brought about, Scrooge knew no more than you do. He only knew that it was quite correct, that everything had happened so, that there he was, alone again, when all the other boys had gone home for the jolly holidays. He was not reading now, but walking up and down despairingly. Scrooge looked at the ghost, and with a mournful shaking of his head, glanced anxiously towards the door. It opened, and a little girl, much younger than he, came darting in, and putting her arms about his neck and often kissing him, addressed him as her dear, dear brother. "I have come to bring you home, dear brother," said the child, clapping her tiny hands and bending down to laugh. "To bring you home, home, home." "Home, little Fan," returned the boy. "Yes," said the child, brimful of glee. "Home for good and all, home for ever and ever. Father is so much kinder than he used to be, that home's like heaven. He spoke so gently to me one dear night when I was going to bed, that I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home, and he said yes, you should, and sent me in a coach to bring you. And you're to be a man," said the child, opening her eyes, "and are never to come back here. But first, we're to be together all the Christmas long, and have the merriest time in all the world." "You are quite a woman, little Fan," exclaimed the boy. She clapped her hands and laughed, and tried to touch his head, but being too little, laughed again, and stood on tiptoe to embrace him. Then she began to drag him in her childish eagerness towards the door, and he, nothing loth to go, accompanied her. A terrible voice in the hall cried, "Bring down Master Scrooge's box there." and in the hall appeared the schoolmaster himself, who glared on Master Scrooge with a ferocious condescension, and threw him into a dreadful state of mind by shaking hands with him. He then conveyed him and his sister into the veriest old well of a shivering best parlour that ever was seen, where the maps upon the wall and the celestial and terrestrial globes in the windows were waxy with cold. Here he produced a decanter of curiously light wine, and a block of curiously heavy cake, and administered instalments of those dainties to the young people, at the same time sending out a meagre servant to offer a glass of something to the postboy, who answered that he thanked the gentleman, but if it was the same tap as he had tasted before, he had rather not. Master Scrooge's trunk being by this time tied onto the top of the chaise, the children bade the schoolmaster good-bye right willingly, and getting into it, drove gaily down the garden sweep, the quick wheels dashing the hoar-frost and snow from off the dark leaves of the evergreens like spray. "Always a delicate creature, whom a breath might have withered," said the ghost. "But she had a large heart."
"So she had," cried Scrooge. "You're right. I will not gainsay it, Spirit. God forbid."
"She died a woman," said the ghost, "and had, as I think, children."
"One child," Scrooge returned.
"True," said the ghost. "Your nephew."
Scrooge seemed uneasy in his mind, and answered briefly, "Yes." Although they had but that moment left the school behind them, they were now in the busy thoroughfares of a city, where shadowy passengers passed and repassed, where shadowy carts and coaches battled for the way, and all the strife and tumult of a real city were. It was made plain enough, by the dressing of the shops, that here too it was Christmas time again, but it was evening, and the streets were lighted up. The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door, and asked Scrooge if he knew it. "Know it?" said Scrooge. "Was I apprenticed here?"
They went in. At sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig, sitting behind such a high desk that if it had been 2 inches taller he must have knocked his head against the ceiling, Scrooge cried in great excitement,
"Why, it's old Fezziwig, bless his heart! It's Fezziwig alive again!"
Old Fezziwig laid down his pen, and looked up at the clock, which pointed to the hour of 7. He rubbed his hands, adjusted his capacious waistcoat, laughed all over himself from his shoes to his organ of benevolence, and called out in a comfortable, oily, rich, fat, jovial voice,
"Ho, ho, there, Ebenezer! Dick!"
Scrooge's former self, now grown a young man, came briskly in, accompanied by his fellow prentice.
"Dick Wilkins, to be sure," said Scrooge to the ghost. "Bless me, yes, there he is. He was very much attached to me, was Dick. Poor Dick. Dear, dear." "Yo-ho, my boys," said Fezziwig. "No more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick. Christmas, Ebenezer. Let's have the shutters up," cried old Fezziwig, with a sharp clap of his hands, "before a man can say Jack Robinson."
You wouldn't believe how those two fellows went at it,
They charged into the street with the shutters, 1, 2, 3, had 'em up in their places, 4, 5, 6, barred 'em and pinned 'em, 7, 8, 9, and came back before you could have got to 12, panting like racehorses. "Hilly-ho!" cried old Fezziwig, skipping down from the high desk with wonderful agility. "Clear away, my lads, and let's have lots of room here. Hilly-ho, Dick! Cheer up, Ebenezer!" Clear away. There was nothing they wouldn't have cleared away or couldn't have cleared away with old Fezziwig looking on. It was done in a minute. Every movable was packed off as if it were dismissed from public life forevermore. The floor was swept and watered, the lamps were trimmed, fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. In came a fiddler with a music book, and went up to the lofty desk and made an orchestra of it, and tuned like 50 stomach aches. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast substantial smile. In came the 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In came the 6 young followers, whose hearts they broke. In came all the young men and women employed in the business. In came the housemaid with her cousin the baker. In came the cook with her brother's particular friend, the milkman. In came the boy from over the way, who was suspected of not having board enough for his master, trying to hide himself behind the girl from next door but one, who was proved to have had her ears pulled by her mistress. In they all came, one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly, some pushing, some pulling. In they all came anyhow and everyhow. Away they all went, 20 couple at once, hands half round and back again the other way, down the middle and up again, round and round in various stages of affectionate grouping. Old top couple always turning up in the wrong place, new top couple starting off again as soon as they got there. Old top couples at last, and not a bottom one to help them. When this result was brought about, old Fezziwig, clapping his hands to stop the dance, cried out, "Well done!" And the fiddler plunged his hot face into a pot of porter, especially provided for that purpose. But scorning rest, upon his reappearance, he instantly began again, though there were no dancers yet, as if the other fiddler had been carried home exhausted on a shutter, and he were a brand new man resolved to beat him out of sight or perish. There were more dancers, and there were forfeits, and more dancers, and there was cake, and there was negus, and there was a great piece of cold roast, and there was a great piece of cold boiled, and there were mince pies and plenty of beer. But the great effect of the evening came after the roast and boiled, when the fiddler, an artful dog, mind, the sort of man who knew his business better than you or I could have told it him, struck up Sir Roger de Coverley. Then old Fezziwig stood out to dance with Mrs. Fezziwig, top couple too, with a good stiff piece of work cut out for them, 3 or 4 and 20 pair of partners. People were not to be trifled with, people who would dance, and had no notion of walking. But if they had been twice as many, 4 times, old Fezziwig would have been a match for them, and so would Mrs. Fezziwig. As to her, she was worthy to be his partner in every sense of the term. If that's not high praise, tell me higher, and I'll use it. A positive light appeared to issue from Fezziwig's calves. They shone in every part of the dance like moons. You couldn't have predicted at any given time what would have become of them next. And when old Fezziwig and Mrs. Fezziwig had gone all through the dance, advance and retire, both hands to your partner, bow and curtsy, corkscrew, thread the needle, and back again to your place, Fezziwig cut cut so deftly that he appeared to wink with his legs, and came upon his feet again without a stagger. When the clock struck 11, this domestic ball broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig took their stations, one on either side of the door, and shaking hands with every person individually as he or she went out, wished him or her a Merry Christmas. When everybody had retired but the two prentices, they did the same to them, and thus the cheerful voices died away, and the lads were left to their beds, which were under a counter in the back shop. During the whole of this time, Scrooge had acted like a man out of his wits. His heart and soul were in the scene, and with his former self. He corroborated everything, remembered everything, enjoyed everything, and underwent the strangest agitation. It was not until now, when the bright faces of his former self and Dick were turned from them, that he remembered the ghost, and became conscious that it was looking full upon him, while the light upon its head burnt very clear. "A small matter," said the ghost, "to make these silly folks so full of gratitude." "Small!" echoed Scrooge. The spirit signed to him to listen to the two apprentices, who were pouring out their hearts in praise of Fezziwig, and when he had done so, said, "Why, is it not? He has spent but a few pounds of your mortal money, 3 or 4, perhaps. Is that so much that he deserves this praise?" "It isn't that," said Scrooge, heated by the remark, and speaking unconsciously like his former, not his latter self. "It isn't that, spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. Say that his power lies in words and looks, in things so slight and insignificant that it is impossible to add and count them up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune." He felt the spirit's glance and stopped. "What is the matter?" asked the ghost. "Nothing particular," said Scrooge. "Something, I think," the ghost insisted. "No," said Scrooge. "No, I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now, that's all." His former self turned down the lamps as he gave utterance to the wish, and Scrooge and the ghost again stood side by side in the open air. "My time grows short," observed the spirit. "Quick." This was not addressed to Scrooge or to anyone whom he could see, but it produced an immediate effect, for again Scrooge saw himself. He was older now, a man in the prime of life. His face had not the harsh and rigid lines of later years, but had begun to wear the signs of care and avarice. There was an eager, greedy, restless motion in the eye, which showed the passion that had taken root, and where the shadow of the growing tree would fall. He was not alone, but sat by the side of a fair young girl in a mourning dress, in whose eyes there were tears, which sparkled in the light that shone out of the ghost of Christmas past. "It matters little," she said softly. "To you, very little. Another idol has displaced me, and if it can cheer and comfort you in time to come, as I would have tried to do, I have no just cause to grieve." "What idol has displaced you?" he rejoined. a golden one. This is the even-handed dealing of the world, he said. There is nothing on which it is so hard as poverty, and there is nothing it professes to condemn with such severity as the pursuit of wealth. You fear the world too much, she answered gently. All your other hopes have merged into the hope of being beyond the chance of its sordid reproach. I have seen your nobler aspirations fall off one by one until the master passion, gain, engrosses you. Have I not? What then? He retorted. Even if I have grown so much wiser, what then? Am I not changed towards you? She shook her head. Am I? Our contract is an old one. It was made when we were both poor and content to be so. Until, in good season, we could improve our worldly fortune by our patient industry. You are changed. When it was made, you were another man. I was a boy, he said impatiently. Your own feeling tells you that you are not what you are, she returned. I am. That which promises happiness when we were one in heart is fraught with misery now that we are two. How often and how keenly I have thought of this, I will not say. It is enough that I have thought of it, and can release you. Have I ever sought release? In words, no, never. In what then? In a changed nature, in an altered spirit, in another atmosphere of life, another hope as its great end, in everything that made my love of any worth or value in your sight. If this had never been between us, said the girl, looking mildly but with steadiness upon him, tell me, would you seek me out and try to win me now? Ah, no. He seemed to yield to the justice of this supposition, in spite of himself. But he said with a struggle, You think not? I would gladly think otherwise if I could, she answered. Heaven knows. When I have learned a truth like this, I know how strong and irresistible it must be. But if you were free today, tomorrow, yesterday, can even I believe that you would choose a dowerless girl? You, who in your very confidence with her weigh everything by gain, or choosing her if for a moment you were false enough to your one guiding principle to do so. Do I not know that your repentance and regret would surely follow? I do, and I release you, with a full heart, for the love of him you once were. He was about to speak, but with her head turned from him, she resumed. You may. The memory of what is past half makes me hope you will. Have pain in this. A very brief time, and you will dismiss the recollection of it gladly, as an unprofitable dream from which it happened well that you awoke. May you be happy in the life you have chosen. She left him, and they parted. Spirit, said Scrooge, show me no more, conduct me home. Why do you delight to torture me? One shadow more, exclaimed the ghost. No more, cried Scrooge, no more, I don't wish to see it. Show me no more. But the relentless ghost pinioned him in both his arms and forced him to observe what happened next. They were in another scene and place, a room, not very large or handsome, but full of comfort. Near to the winter fire sat a beautiful young girl, so like the last that Scrooge believed it was the same, until he saw her, now a comely matron, sitting opposite her daughter. The noise in this room was perfectly tumultuous, for there were more children there than Scrooge in his agitated state of mind could count. And unlike the celebrated herd in the poem, they were not 40 children conducting themselves like one, but every child was conducting itself like 40. The consequences were uproarious beyond belief, but no one seemed to care. On the contrary, the mother and daughter laughed heartily and enjoyed it very much, and the latter, soon beginning to mingle in the sports, got pillaged by the young brigands most ruthlessly. What would I not have given to be one of them? Oh, I never could have been so rude, no, I wouldn't for the wealth of all the world have crushed that braided hair and torn it down, and for the precious little shoe I wouldn't have plucked it off. God bless my soul, saved my life. As to measuring her waist in sport as they did, bald young brood, I couldn't have done it. I should have expected my arm to have grown round it for a punishment and never come straight again. And yet I should have dearly liked, I own, to have touched her lips, to have questioned her, that she might have opened them, to have looked upon the lashes of her downcast eyes and never raised a blush, to have let loose waves of hair, an inch of which would be a keepsake beyond price. In short, I should have liked, I do confess, to have had the lightest license of a child, and yet to have been man enough to know its value. But now a knocking at the door was heard, and such a rush immediately ensued that she with laughing face and plundered dress was borne towards it, the centre of a flushed and boisterous group, just in time to greet the father, who came home attended by a man laden with Christmas toys and presents. Then the shouting and the struggling, and the onslaught that was made on the defenceless porter, the scaling him with chairs for ladders to dive into his pockets, despoil him of brown paper parcels, hold on tight for his cravat, hug him round his neck, pommel his back, and kick his legs in irrepressible affection. The shouts of wonder and delight with which the development of every package was received. The terrible announcement that the baby had been taken in the act of putting a doll's frying pan into its mouth, and was more than suspected of having swallowed a fictitious turkey, glued on a wooden platter. The immense relief of finding this a false alarm, the joy and gratitude and ecstasy. They were all indescribable alike. It is enough that by degrees the children and their emotions got out of the parlour, and by one stair at a time up to the top of the house, where they went to bed, and so subsided. And now Scrooge looked on more attentively than ever, when the master of the house, having his daughter leaning fondly on him, sat down with her and her mother at his own fireside, and when he thought that such another creature, quite as graceful as full of promise, might have called him father, and been a springtime in the haggard winter of his life, his sight grew very dim indeed. "Belle," said the husband, turning to his wife with a smile, "I saw an old friend of yours this afternoon." "Who was it?" "Guess." "How can I? Don't I know?" she added in the same breath, laughing as he laughed. "Ha! Mr. Scrooge." Mr. Scrooge it was. I passed his office window, and as it was not shut up, and he had a candle inside, I could scarcely help seeing him.
His partner lies upon the point of death, I hear, and there he sat alone. Quite alone in the world, I do believe.
Spirit, said Scrooge in a broken voice, remove me from this place.
I told you these were shadows of the things that have been, said the ghost. That they are what they are. Do not blame me.
Remove me, Scrooge exclaimed. I cannot bear it. He turned upon the ghost, and seeing that it looked upon him with a face, in which in some strange way there were fragments of all the faces it had shown him, wrestled with it. Leave me! Take me back! Haunt me no longer! In the struggle, if that can be called a struggle in which the ghost, with no visible resistance of its own part, was undisturbed by any effort of its adversary, Scrooge observed that its light was burning high and bright, and dimly connecting that with its influence over him, he seized the extinguisher cap, and by a sudden action pressed it down upon its head. The spirit dropped beneath it, so that the extinguisher covered its whole form. But though Scrooge pressed it down with all his force, he could not hide the light which streamed from under it in an unbroken flood upon the ground. He was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by an irresistible drowsiness, and further, of being in his own bedroom. He gave the cap a parting squeeze, in which his hand relaxed, and had barely time to reel to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep. And there we have the end of Stave 2. The end of Chapter 2 of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, of course. I hope you enjoyed that, everybody. Oh, Peter dropped in. I did try and get in touch with you earlier, Peter, just to let you know that I was streaming as you asked, but you know, I guessed you were out for the count, as you say. But lovely to see you in the stream. And we have Ross in the room as well. Nice to see you. Has anybody else dropped in whilst I've been chatting? Yeah, Teresa is here too. Yeah, no, you've not missed any pictures of the Precious. I was hoping that you might see the Precious in person tonight, but the lady is sleeping. She's fast asleep on the sofa. Probably keeps getting disturbed by my reading, but she could go to bed, but she's laying here. So yeah, I can show you a close-up picture of the ring, but it would be nice to see it on the lady's hand in person, so to speak. Yeah, like I said, the gentleman that made the ring, he has a really great Instagram account, and he actually posted some pictures of our ring on there with a little description of the story behind it as well, which is really nice, talking about that it's a custom ring
made with a wonderful salt and pepper diamond, and a little bit about its origin, and saying how much fun it is to create your own engagement ring. So I don't know how well you'll be able to see this. It'll definitely be better if I was to share a picture somewhere. But this is the diamond. It's probably a little bit blurry. But you might be able to get the idea. And this is not going to do it justice at all. But this is, it's really not going to do it justice at all. But this is the ring with the diamond mounted. It's a pretty lovely design, I think. It's very simple in many ways, but very beautifully crafted. The diamond is very visible. You can see the entire side profile of the diamond, which this is really what I wanted to go for, to really make the most of such a beautiful stone. And you can really appreciate this salt and peppering that I mentioned in the last stream. You can read about these things online if you want. And then there's 4 arms that hold the diamond that each split into 2 points. And so from the side, it kind of looks like 2 hands, like holding the diamond in place, which I think is quite pretty. There's another little view. You can see how it all comes together at the top there. So it like splits like a little tree, or like fingers holding it, like kind of like 4 fingers on either side. The thumbs sort of being the ring itself. So it's like 2 hands holding it up. So it was a joint project with me and Hanno, to put this ring together and make it specially for me, which is so wonderful, so like he was really emphasizing as well. He was like saying, this is truly a one-of-a-kind ring. There will be no one else in the world currently with a ring just like that one, which is very special. I'd considered all sorts of different sources, and stores and online shops and all the rest of it. And if you've ever shopped for a diamond yourself, or other precious stones and things like that, you can literally browse catalogues of stones, like libraries and libraries of stones, and choose the exact thing that you're looking for. Or of course you can buy like one straight off the shelf, or however you want to do it. But I was just so fascinated by the idea of kind of like creating my own ring or whatever, and having a story behind it and all the rest. So and safe to say it was extremely well received. It really was. It really, really, really was. Like she feels like it's just a part of her. You'll have to rewind the stream, Teresa. And like I said, showing a picture up to the screen like this, like, really doesn't do it justice. Like I'll try and share some pictures over on Discord or something, Teresa, if you like. So I really hope you enjoyed the reading. Whether you're familiar with A Christmas Carol or whether you're not, what are you thinking of the story? Any feelings on the book, as opposed to the film and theatre versions and all the rest? Are you enjoying the story? I mean, I'm personally a big fan of Charles Dickens' writing, particularly in this story. I think it's lovely. I really like this sort of conversational tone. I think it works very well when narrated. It's quite interesting, really. I think some poems and some stories almost work better when spoken out aloud than just when read on the page, poems particularly. But yeah, it depends. Certain like allegorical stories, like just certain styles, like Dracula, for instance. If you haven't started my reading of Dracula, we've got 10 chapters out there, so must be at least 6 hours available on my channel now. So I really, really do recommend you give that a listen. I was so impressed with Bram Stoker's writing. I've said this a number of times, but as someone who hadn't actually read the book, my head was just filled with kind of cliches and parodies of Dracula, and I really didn't know if I would enjoy the story, but because I had the book to hand, it's just over there. I was skimming it one day, really just feeling like starting something new. I was a bit out of practice with narrating, like I was mentioning on the last stream, and I just got started with Narnia instead of Lord of the Rings because it just felt a little bit more accessible. And yeah, I was just skimming through and I was reading some of the first chapter out aloud, and I just thought, ooh, this is good. Like, hang on a second, like there's no point me just reading to myself. I need to get this on the mic. So after about half an hour of reading it out aloud to myself, I just went back to the start, set up the microphone, and just went for it. With this very kind of like raw reading style. So it is absolutely edited, and I'm kind of like playing on the raw reading effect with how I choose to use and not use the paper rustling and things like that, trying to make it as immersive as possible, whilst being a very relaxed, as if you're being read to kind of feel. But yeah, Bram Stoker's writing just, thought it was absolutely wonderful. And I think that just works so well when spoken out aloud, when narrated. Really feels like someone is telling this story to you with this format written through letters and accounts and newspaper clippings and all sorts of things, like diary entry, journal entries and things like that. It feels very personal when it's being read out, in my opinion, and of course would work very well for you just to read it normally. But yeah, some things work better than others, I think. And this, A Christmas Carol, I think is one that works very, very well, personally. Yeah. Really feels, that just this way that the writer is really talking to you, or the person delivering the story, how they're talking to you. I think it's fantastic. So, I can play on that when I'm reading, even live like this. You can play that it's really me telling you this story. It's great. It's great. Mm. Um. Yeah, and that was part of it, Teffy. Like, I knew that if I went to like a regular high street store, and like when I was browsing online and things like that, I thought like, okay, I could get absolutely overwhelmed here. So like this idea of basically like bringing my own ideas to the table and being able to go to a very, very skilled craftsman and say, look, like this is what I want. What can you do? And and then like playing with his ideas and his suggestions, and then like yeah, like a coming together of minds. And yeah, he did such a wonderful job of helping me to customize just exactly what I kind of pictured in my mind. So, yeah, it was wonderful. Yeah, not surprised that you can find it hard to follow sometimes, Olivia. I mean, it is very flowery, and this Victorian English doesn't help that. But um, I think it's fantastic. It really takes you back to another time. I don't know if that's exaggerated for you guys, like over in North America, particularly, because some of this English, I feel, you know, you often use the English language a little bit different to we do in Britain. I mean, there's such a mix here, of course. Well, I'm in Sweden, but you get my point. Like in the UK, there's such a mix of ways of using English, obviously. But I think this style, it feels less alien than maybe it does for some of our friends across the pond. Thanks very much, Ashling and Mama Fox, for the compliments. Glad you're enjoying it. Oh, did both of you miss the ring thing, Teresa and Shannon? How did you manage that? Oh, that's fantastic, Lindsay. Yeah, I can absolutely imagine that if you're a big fan of the story, when you see that produced in a way that you don't feel is how you imagine it, or it doesn't feel true to the book, it's gonna irritate. I think stage productions can be much better, actually, like you said. Yeah, the camera manual, Shannon, truly putting you to the test there. Some of you won't know what you're talking about with that, but $5 patrons, you can still listen to these things that I don't have on the channel anymore, you know. And that was my original 10,000 subscriber special on my original Stephen Garnett channel, when I put together a reading of a camera manual and of the Oxford Dictionary, just to see if you truly would listen to anything I read, and you did. Yeah, exactly. I can stick some pictures on Discord of the ring, I'm sure. Oh, she's calling you Tess. Yeah, she doesn't realize. Yeah, thank you very much, Mango. It's a lovely compliment when you're saying, when I read it, you see the purity of it and why these stories have stood the test of time. That's a lovely thing to say. Thanks very much. Easily could completely butcher it, of course, and make you all think, why is this even so famous? Hmm. Just reading your little ring stories there. And Teresa with her name change. Hmm. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. You're very welcome, Lindsay. Lindsay's heading off to bed. Yeah, and I honestly think I will too. So I know Teresa and maybe some others will be disappointed that no Tamara Prince is coming your way today, but it is 2:50 a.m., so it's nearly 3 a.m. And I got in the reading that I absolutely was dedicated to get in today, which was, or determined to get in today, which was obviously the second stave of Christmas Carol. Hoping to be back on Sunday, I think will work best to give you stave 3. If I do start a bit earlier, I might be able to do another reading as well. But just for these 5 live streams around the Christmas period that I'm aiming to deliver, A Christmas Carol is going to be the main focus, just to play on this Christmas holiday time. But in the new year, I'm going to be getting stuck into Dracula, getting stuck into The Lord of the Rings. We'll see when Narnia comes back. It definitely will come back, but I've been saying here and there that I just want to make some progress with The Lord of the Rings after such a long time. And I really think, I know I've said this before, but I really think that I can get a little bit more regular with the streaming. It feels like this is the best apartment that I've had to do streaming since the first apartment where I started the Red Fox Book Club last spring. Because when I moved from there, like I had the summer holiday when I was away for nearly a month, and then I was plodding on with Harry Potter, a bunch of other series, and I had my official audiobooks to do. I had Sleepers to finish, and then I had the whole of The Curse of the Ice Dragon to finish before the second week of December. So I did get some streaming in, as you remember, especially near the end of the year. But I was moving all over the place. I was like moving 1, technically 2. Then I was over to France, moving around in different places in France. That didn't work out. Then I was back here, not in the most ideal place for streaming, although it was a very safe, lovely place to live, but just not ideal for streaming, even though I did stream here and there. And then moving again didn't work so well. Then moving to the place where I did those first 3 streams with the video, where I started with Alice in Wonderland with the video and everything back in late spring, early summer. Then I moved to where I did the Lord of the Rings streams and a couple of other things, and now we're here. And I really think this place, fingers crossed, we can stay here for some time. Like I said, even though it's expensive, hopefully we can stay here for some time, have some stability. It's far too expensive, but it's quite spacious. Yeah, internet seems good. My fiance seems very happy. And yeah, I think it will work well. I hope so. So yeah, let's see what the new year holds. We will definitely have some To Marry a Prince, Teresa, don't worry. And yeah, a bunch of other readings too. And hopefully my channel just keeps growing and doesn't have any problems. My Patreon has sadly been declining for a long time. Like since I could no longer produce Harry Potter, it's been going down. People have been leaving, but still got incredible support over on Patreon. And this last month was the first month where it's just about evened out again. So it's not been declining. It's just about evened out. And there's been quite a few new people joining as well, which is wonderful and so needed. So let's see what 2020 holds. see if I can get stuck into some new professional work. Just keep growing the channel. Keep reading to you Fox fans. And just enjoy doing what I do. That's the most important thing in many ways. If I'm happy, you're happy a lot of the time. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Teffy. I hope this feels like home too. I've moved so many times before that list that I've just listed. Many times in Stockholm and back home in England as well. So let's hope this just gives us some stability. Like, even if it's for just a year or something like that. Like I said, it's a bit too expensive to really maintain, I think, for a long time. But yeah, let's just hope things work out. Okay, let's hope so. Cheers, Mango. We'll get there. Oh yeah, but just write on Discord anytime, Aisling. Yeah, no worries. And you guys, you can always send me an email as well if you're not on Discord or on Facebook. And if you're worried a comment is either too public or will get lost on YouTube or on Twitch, if I was over on Twitch, then you can always send me an email. If you look in the video description, there's a couple of email addresses in there that you can use. I think the Red Fox Voice one is probably best, but you can use either. It really doesn't matter. And the Stephen Garnett one, that S Garnett Gmail, that's also my PayPal link as well for donations and things like that. All right. That sounds almost like some Swedish, Mango. Like skål, which means bowl or cheers. A bowl of beer. That's how they do it. Yeah. Okay. Let's call it bedtime. It's been a lovely little stream. Took a long time to get going, as I said, I started a little bit prematurely, which means that the stream started early, but then I had to just get settled and everything. Oh, Patreon. What you mean for messaging, for getting in contact with me? I mean, Patreon's great as well. Email and Patreon and Discord. I mean, do what you want. It really doesn't matter. Oh, so you were actually dropping that, Mango. Respect. It is only water, but like it. Yeah, they write it like this in Swedish. You'll probably have seen that, like with the A with the little O on top, which is an U, and then you've got these fancy letters as well, and air, and then all the regular Roman junk. Okay, yeah, thanks Aisling. Thanks ever so much for joining. It's always an absolute always an absolute pleasure to have you here. And thanks to all of you that managed to stick around even when I went and fixed my cup of tea and a little bit of food and things like that at the start. Really appreciate it. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed Stave 2 and that you will come back for Stave 3, hopefully Sunday. Like I said, we'll see if we start a little bit earlier or if it's around midnight again, my time. And yeah, Discord, like I said, every time, great place if you want to stay in the loop. I know sometimes it feels like an awful lot of things to manage. If you've got apps, all these different apps. I mean, Discord is completely free to use. You don't have to pay for it or anything like that. But if you only use Twitch and Discord and other things purely for my community, I know it can maybe feel like a bit of a hassle. But some people use everything, and that's wonderful. But yeah, Discord, it's just so easy to notify you and everything. Thanks very much, Mango. She very much sends her love to all of you guys as well. She thinks this whole community is absolutely amazing, honestly. She's so positive and so supportive, which is really wonderful. So, and I think she will pop online sometime soon. I hope so. Okay. Good night, everybody. Thanks again for joining. Take care wherever you are. And read to you soon.